Persona is a very old series that has brought gamers all around the world countless hours of joy, and with such a long and rich history, there are a ton of interesting facts and details that you might not have ever heard about. Ranging from details about the voice actors, cut content, or just random trivia, there's always new things to learn about this franchise, and in this video, I want to tell you about 101 facts I've learned over the years. If you learned anything new from this, all I ask is that you like and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. Akihiko's Persona 3 Reload VA, Alejandro Saab, confirmed on Twitter that during Akihiko's awakening scene, he channeled his inner feelings toward the passing of his friend Billy Kometz, who is the voice actor of Maruki in Persona 5 Royal, which made the scene very personal for him. This shows in his performance, but I won't show it to avoid spoilers. Persona on PlayStation has a total of 2,504 trophies across all regions and platforms, 54 of those being platinum trophies all by themselves, and your boy has got a lot of these. The game that has the most trophies and platinums is Persona 4 Golden, with 8 different platinum trophies you can obtain via PS4 and PS Vita versions, and 400 total trophies. This means to fully complete the Persona 4 Golden trophy family, you need to beat the game a total of 16 times. Have fun! The highest rated Persona game on Steam is Persona 4 Golden, sitting at an overwhelmingly positive rating. 97% of the 60,632 reviews are positive. This makes it the 89th highest rated game on the entirety of Steam. Extremely impressive and fitting for the best Persona game of them all. The rapper Lotus Juice, who has been making music for Persona games since Persona 3 on PlayStation 2, says his favorite girl in Persona is Fuka Yamagishi. Truly one of the most based people to ever roam the earth. The first Persona game, Megami Ubunroku Persona, was released in Japan on September 20th, 1996. The game takes place in 1996 as well, and this means Persona as a franchise has been going on for nearly 30 years. The main cast of Persona 1 are around 55 years old now in the current day. The Chinese mobile game spin-off Persona 5 The Phantom X introduced the series' first grandmother Persona user. Her name is Chizuko Nagao, her codename is Vino, and she is 75 years old. She uses a dagger and revolver to fight. In the Persona 3 Official Design Works interview held on October 3rd, 2006, the producer and director Katsura Hashino, as well as character designer and art director Shigenori Sojima, both admitted that they had never successfully forged a true friendship with a girl in real life. I'll let you take that as you will. Persona 3 Reload, released on February 2nd, 2024, sold 1 million copies worldwide in its first week, making it the fastest selling Atlus game to date. Safe to say, we're probably going to be seeing some more remakes going forward. A feature that you may not be aware of, or might not be taking advantage of, is the album feature in the Persona 4 Golden Remaster. After maxing out a social link, you can go to the couch in the protagonist's room and watch all 10 ranks in any order you wish. This is the only game to provide this feature. Speaking of the protagonist, each mainline protagonist in the series actually has a canon name. Persona 1 has Naoya Todo, Persona 2 has Tatsuya Suo and Maya Amano, and the other 3 have some variants. Persona 3's protag is named Makoto Yuki in most adaptations, but is called Minato Arisato in the official manga. Persona 4's protag is called Yu Narukami mostly, but is called Sota Seiji in the manga. And finally, Joker is called Rin Amamiya, but is also called Akira Kurusu in the manga. Why does the manga always have a different name? Well, the mangakas just decided that's what they wanted to call them. When Atlus held a poll asking fans which games of theirs they would like to see a remake of the most, Persona 3 and Persona 2 both tied for first place, which eventually led to them making Persona 3 Reload. Could this mean a Persona 2 remake is to come in the future? Probably, but only time will tell. One of the absolute rarest Persona collectibles out there is a limited Persona 3 Dancing and Persona 5 Dancing promo vinyl. There were a whopping 42 of these made, and most of them are in the hands of Atlus content creators or collectors. In Persona 3 Reload, several of the original voice actors of the PlayStation 2 version made an appearance in the game. Yukari's original VA runs the antique shop, Akihiko's VA is Officer Kurosawa, and Elizabeth's VA is the original voice actress. Go figure. Also, Joker voices Mr. Edogawa. You probably won't be able to unhear that now, and there are more examples of this, but I'll let you have fun with that information. Yosuke in Persona 4 had a cut romance option with the protagonist. and the game files were voice lines for him that very much sound like what you would hear during a rank 9 romance moment.
I never knew I had such heat inside. Don't make me say stuff like that. Don't go. I like you.
Persona as a series, as of recording this video, has surpassed a whopping 22 million total sales worldwide. The best selling of them all being Persona 5, contributing about 8 million all by itself. Quite impressive if I do say so myself, and I honestly wonder where the series would be if Persona 5 wasn't a hit. There have been a number of Persona limited edition consoles made over the years. Persona 4 Dancing had a PlayStation Vita variant, Persona Q had a Nintendo 3DS variant, and Persona 5 Royal had several PlayStation 4s. These are some of my favorite consoles of all time design-wise, and they represent what each respective game is going for very well. The highest rated Persona game on Metacritic is Persona 5 Royal with an overall score of 95 out of 100. And not only that, it's the 47th highest rated game of all time on the website out of the thousands of games on there. Very deserved if you ask me, it's such a great game. Persona 5 has several references to other Persona titles. There is a poster of Rise and Shibuya and many other mentions of the investigation team that you can see on the LeBlanc TV on certain days. For example, on April 29th, you can see a reference to Naoto, fitting since the game is about TVs and the TV world. On the Switch version of Persona 5 Royal, since it's on a Nintendo platform, it will prevent you from naming your Phantom Thief something inappropriate, as shown by this user on Twitter. I'd show what it says, but I don't want to get banned off of YouTube. Be nice online, everyone. Persona 4 Arena on PS3 had sales numbers that exceeded the expectations of Atlas. It outsold every other fighting game at the time, which included the likes of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Dead or Alive 5, and more. It went through 90% of its initial shipments, and this led to them making the sequel called Persona 4 Arena Ultimax just 2 years later. Speaking of Arena, until the ports of modern Persona titles in 2023, the Arena games were the only Persona titles to ever release on an Xbox platform. This is presumably because of the nature of it being an Arc System Works fighting game, so it would appeal to a broader audience. This is speculation on my part, however, so take that with a grain of salt. Marie in Persona 4 Arena Ultimax was meant to have a shadow variation, but it was cut before release. In the game files, there are portraits and art of her, and they look great actually. This was presumably cut because it wouldn't make too much sense narrative-wise, or maybe they just didn't know how to make her moveset work with the Shadow Frenzy mechanic. Either way, we lost out on an evil emo type character, and for that, I think we need a moment of silence. Persona 4 actually has a ton of Persona 3's data files on the disc. It has battle portraits, cut-ins, music, and more. It makes sense considering Persona 4 used Persona 3 as a base, and they run on the same kind of engine, and I always find it fascinating to see these kinds of things in gaming. Revelations Persona is widely regarded as one of the worst localizations ever made. It changed the race of characters as well as their name, it had some racism sprinkled in there, and overall, it's just rough around the edges to say the least. Due to this and a general lack of interest in the series in the West at the time, this game is the rarest mainline Persona game you can purchase today, and it goes for hundreds of dollars on eBay nowadays. Have you noticed that in Persona 4 Golden, when you open a door in a dungeon, the music dims as one of your party members says something? This is actually a mistake. In Japanese, the characters have voice lines for this, whereas in English they do not, but the music dimming stayed anyways. This was never fixed even in the remastered ports of the game, but there are mods to fix it. Some of the most amount of money a Persona 4 Arena Ultimax player has ever made from playing the game competitively is a Japanese player called Cho, otherwise known as Superboy, who made a total of very roughly $8,622 after winning the fighting game championship known as EVO in 2015. He mained Ken and beat Ultimax legends such as Taiichi on his way to victory. This was also one of the biggest prize pools for a Persona tournament ever. In an interview of Atsushi Kitajo, the sound composer for Persona 3 Reload, he stated that for the most part, Lotus Juice and the new singer Azumi Takahashi had free reign to sing or revise songs in a way they saw fitting, and the two of them got along very well. Lotus Juice rewrote a lot of the lyrics, and Takahashi's son was free to sing songs in a way she wished. This resulted in masterpieces like Color Your Night and It's Going Down Now. But of course, the credit has to go to Kitajo as well. If you include re-releases and remakes, the Persona franchise has a total of 21 games across its history, not including the mobile titles. About half of them are unavailable to play on modern platforms, but I'm sure some are bound to be ported over. Persona 1 and 2 I'm sure will eventually get a version to play on modern platforms. As for games like Persona 3 FES, however, I wouldn't hold out on that getting a port anytime soon, if ever. People like to joke about Persona 4 being milked or never dying, but in truth, Persona 5 is in the same boat now. Persona 4 has 2 anime series and 6 games if you include Persona Q with it. Persona 5 has an anime series in 7 games, including Persona Q2 and Persona 5 The Phantom X. Considering P5X is a live service gacha game, if they keep pushing it and have it perform well, then Persona 5 will literally live forever. There is going to be a larger gap between Persona 5 and Persona 6 than there was with Persona 4 and Persona 5. The gap between 4 and 5 was about 8 years, and considering Persona 5 came out in 2016, it's now been 8 years since Persona 5 with no announcement of 6. So unless they release it before September 16th of this year, which is just not going to happen, then the gap is going to be larger. I'll let you take that in. Thanks to the work of some goated modders, you can now play Doom and Persona 5 Royal. It's the free version to avoid getting a DMCA notice, but it works very well all things considered, and it works just like playing any other game in Joker's Room. Spanning across all 21 or so games in the Persona franchise, as well as the Persona Super Lives and anime adaptations, there are upwards of 1,000 songs at least created for the series. This means if you wanted to listen to all of the songs in a row, it would take you weeks or maybe even months to complete. The beta version of Persona 5 was leaked not too long ago online, and it contained some interesting things. It had beta versions of a lot of the songs used in the game, and it also contained some interesting signs that obviously went unused in the final game. I think you can see why. In Persona 3 FES, there was a glitch to skip the entire final battle of the game, and this is one of the most well-known glitches in the series. If you save the Devil's Social Link until January 31st in-game and visit the Polonia Mall at nighttime, you can begin the social link still, and since doing this advances time, it skips you to the final days of the game. So Tactica indirectly changed the entire series. In the Persona 4 anime, Narukami actually faces his own shadow at the end of the series, and this is referenced in the Persona 4 Arena Ultimax game too, where the shadow variant of Narukami uses the same appearance. This is one of my all-time favorite things done in something that isn't a mainline game because it adds a lot to his character. The color palette of Persona 6 is very likely going to be this shade of green. In an art piece made for the 25th anniversary celebration of Persona, there is this green bucket sitting to the side of all of the protagonists. While nothing has been confirmed for 100% sure, it's fairly safe to assume there is a reason for it to be there. Until Persona 5 came out in Japan in 2016, the best-selling game was actually Persona 1. It sold about 410,000 copies in the territory, but Persona 5 has blown it out of the water with upwards of 1 million copies in the region alone. This just goes to show how important Persona 1 was though. In the female protagonist route of Persona 3 Portable, during a trip for the sports team, you can actually meet a young version of Yukiko from Persona 4, since you stay at the Amagi Inn. Her portrait is very similar to her P4 one, but her hair is much shorter, her uniform is different, and she's been color corrected to match the other portraits. On the other hand, you can see Chihiro from Persona 3 during the Gekkoukan High class trip in Persona 4. She's much older and has become the new student council president, and seems to have gotten over her fear of boys, showing that the protagonist helped her a lot during Persona 3. The PlayStation Vita is nearly the ultimate way to play the Persona series. You can play Persona 1 through 4 on it as well as all of the dancing games, and if you pair it with a limited edition Persona 4 Dancing Vita I mentioned earlier, then you've got a recipe for success, and on a good budget too. The Vita is also the only way to legally buy and play Persona 1 and 2 on official firmware. Atlus has performed some character popularity polls for Persona 3 through Persona 5, and the results are quite interesting. The protagonist is of course always going to be number 1, that's just how it is, but the other slots are quite shocking to me honestly. What do you all think about these polls? I personally think Fuga being that low is a crime against humanity and should not go unpunished, but hey, we're all sinners. It's implied that Joker probably enjoys cross-dressing at least a little bit. In the Persona 5 manga called Memento's Mission, Joker cross-dresses as a cop for an investigation, and in Persona Q2, he shows some disappointment at not being able to try Elizabeth's dress on. I will let you take this information as you will. The voice actor and actress for the Persona 3 protagonist in Fuka recreated one of the most popular memes in the community. They're in tune with all of the goofy things that go on in the community, so they wanted to have some fun too. It recreates the famous Berlizzi clip from The Sims, but of course it's talking about the Persona variation of it.
Phew. It is hot as hell in this freaky ass hot ass room I'm in.
Is that the Grim Reaper?
There was a Persona 4 Flash game where you just try to take a look at Chie while she's in the hot springs, alright? I wish I was joking, but I'm not. This was officially made too, by the way. This is not a fan-made thing. I really do not know what the thought process was behind this, but, you know, it's there, I guess. In the mobile game Fire Emblem Heroes, there was actually a portrait of Tatsuya from Persona 2 in the game files. It was presumably used as a placeholder asset for other characters to make sure everything was properly aligned and displaying properly. Did you know that Persona actually has a few mobile games? And I'm not even talking about P5X either. There was a mobile game for Persona 1 and Persona 3 made, and in the Persona 3 mobile game you play as Aigis 10 years before the events of Persona 3 actually occur, so you get a lot of backstory for her. As for the Persona 1 mobile game, you get transported to a different world by the Diva system, and have to return to your original world. These are both available to play and purchase on Steam right now. There are a couple more, but those are the standouts. Speaking of Persona 1, did you know that it had a Windows 95 and 98 port? It was never officially released on digital marketplaces, so the only way to play it now is by finding an original copy of the game, but they can be quite scarce nowadays, especially since it was only ever released in Japan. Playing it is a bit of a pain for sure, but it's awesome that this exists. The Q in the Persona Q games is a direct reference to the Japanese Etrian Odyssey name, which is Seikaiju no Mekyu. The reason this is the case is because Persona Q took a lot of its gameplay elements from those games, and the last syllable Q sounds like the letter Q. Oromaru in Persona 3 is based off the famous Japanese dog named Hachiko. Hachiko, after the passing of his guardian Ueno, would wait for him at the train station they would frequent together. His loyalty and love for Ueno was infectious to those around him, and people would eventually give him food and treats as he waited. Sounds pretty familiar, huh? The speedrun world record time for Persona 4 Golden for the hard Golden Ending category is currently 5 hours, 56 minutes, and 33 seconds using load remover time, and the real time was 7 hours, 2 minutes, and 18 seconds. Absolutely mind-blowing that you can beat a Persona game that fast. During the cut-ins for Persona 4, you can actually see Inaba in the reflection of the investigation team's glasses. It's very hard to see unless you're looking very closely on a larger screen, but it's a really cool detail. Hifumi from Persona 5 was initially meant to be a phantom thief in the place of Makoto. She was going to be the queen, which is fitting considering she's a shogi player. I'd imagine she was replaced by Makoto since she had a more direct connection to Sai and the main story, but deep down inside, I would have loved to have Hifumi, I'm not gonna lie. This is a fairly well-known fact, but in the Persona 4 Golden anime, during the opening sequence, you can see that Narukami's social stats are maxed out. This means that the Golden anime is the New Game Plus route. Adachi's social link in Persona 4 Golden and Takemi's confidant in Persona 5 are the only ones in the series to have a change in when they are available. During certain ranks, Adachi is available during the day, some during the night. And for Takemi, if you do her romance route, her rank 10 will be moved to nighttime instead of daytime. The rarest Persona trophy of all time is the C'est Magnifique trophy from Persona 4 Arena. For this trophy, you need to complete the score attack mode with all characters, and only a whopping 0.44% of players on PSN profiles have ever obtained this trophy. The platinum itself is only 0.39%. Persona 4 Arena is the first game in the Persona series to not have the Shin Megami Tensei label on it overseas. The reason it was removed is because the senior project manager of Atlus, Masaru Namba, felt the name would be too long. And in fairness, Shin Megami Tensei Persona 4 Arena would be a pretty damn long title. The most streamed Persona song on the entirety of Spotify is Last Surprise from Persona 5 with a whopping 38,271,014 total streams, which is insanely high for a video game OST. And the OST as a whole has some of the highest numbers of streams of any game ever put onto Spotify. Persona 4 Arena is one of only 3 games to ever be region locked on PlayStation 3. Atlus released a statement saying the reason they did this was because the game was technically much cheaper overseas than it was in Japan, so they didn't want Japanese players to begin importing the game to get it at a cheaper price. This was pretty scummy for sure. Persona 5 Tactica was the very first Persona title to have a simultaneous worldwide release besides ports of older Persona games. This is one of the best decisions Atlus made because it would lead to games like Persona 3 Reload selling way more than it otherwise would have if it was only released in Japan. Have you ever wondered what Erina and Toshiro from Persona 5 Tactica would look like in a standard art style? Well, there's some concept art to let you see just that, and I must say they look very good. It almost makes me wish there was a game or way to see them in action in this style, but what we got in Tactica was very good as well. Have you ever considered how long it might take to reach level 99 in the first dungeon of a Persona game? Well, YouTuber YourBudTevin decided to find out just that. It took him around 372 hours of pure grinding in Kamoshida's palace in Persona 5 Royal to reach level 99, and this was on safe difficulty, by the way. I can only imagine how long it would take on anything else. In Persona 5, you can actually deal more damage on the merciless difficulty than you can on safety. This is possible because the damage you deal on this difficulty from weaknesses, crits, and technical attacks is triple of what the base value would normally be. This is something common in many hard modes of games, and it's a massive oversight for sure. For those of you who prefer to play with Japanese dubs rather than English dubs, did you know that Persona 5 was the first game to support dual audio? Before this, the only way to experience the games in the Japanese audio was to import a copy of the game from Japan, but of course these don't have English text. This is a bigger inclusion than I think people realize. There is a spin-off Persona anime called Persona Trinity Soul that takes place in the same universe as Persona 3. The time period is about 10 years after the events of P3, and adults cannot use personas in this world, so even though Akihiko appears, he can't really fight. This anime was generally poorly received. Persona 3 has the most regional differences when it comes to the box art. Many versions of the game have different box arts, and it wasn't until Persona 3 Reload came out where every version would be unified to have the same box art. Yakuza Kiwami actually has a reference to Persona 4 inside of it. In an adult shop, you can find a DVD called Midnight Channel 4, and one might think this could be a coincidence, but let's be real. Both franchises are owned by Sega, and I mean, come on, Midnight Channel 4, Persona 4, pretty obvious. Joker from Persona 5 was initially planned to be included in Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. In the game files between Marie and Adachi's names, you can find a text string with P5 Hero in it, and there are also voice lines saying P5 Hero and his persona, which was initially planned to be Mephistopheles.
P5 Hero. Persona 5 Hero. Mephistopheles.
Makoto Yuki is the shortest male protagonist in Persona to date, standing at 5 foot 7 inches or about 170 centimeters. The tallest on the other hand is Tatsuya, who is 5 foot 11 inches or 181 centimeters. The shortest one overall is Kotone Shiomi, or the female protagonist from Persona 3 Portable. Persona 2 features the series' first confirmed gay and bisexual characters in Jun Kurusu and Tatsuya Suo. In Innocent Sin, you're given the option to romance Jun as Tatsuya, and even if you don't choose to pursue this romance, the fact it's an option confirms that Tatsuya himself has that kind of desire in him. As for Jun, that one is an open and shut case. He explicitly loves guys regardless of what you do. Persona 2 features Hitler as an antagonist, fully sprited and everything. This is most likely the reason why the game was never released outside of Japan until the PSP remake. Hatsune Miku canonically exists in the Persona world. In Persona 4 Dancing, there is a DLC pack you can buy of Miku where she sings a remix of Heaven and dances to it. Honestly, her design in this game is pretty great. Now, whether the song itself is good or not, I'll leave that up to you to decide. In the Persona 3 Reload announcement trailer, there are some Latin words and phrases used throughout. There is Hora Tenebrosa, which means the dark hour, then Dum Spero, which means while I breathe, I hope, and finally, there is Renascere, which means to be reborn. All of these are very fitting for the game, as you'd imagine. In the original Persona 3, if you used cheats to equip personas you're not meant to have, or just caught cheating in general, Fuka and Mitsuru would scold you during battle instead of giving you information about the enemies.
You're cheating. I'll have to punish you. I'm very disappointed in you.
Cheating, huh? I'm disappointed in you.
The lead character designer for the Persona series for a lot of the games, Shigenori Sojima, said that his favorite character is Aigis, with Yukari being a close second, and that Persona 3 is his favorite Persona game. Many people believe that yellow was chosen as the main color for Persona 4 since it represents happiness and since it's one of the more light-hearted games in the series, and this is actually true, but Sojima said that another reason it was chosen was because it invokes a sense of warning and mystery. Yellow is used for things like marking off areas that are off limits, so this point makes sense when you think about it. Every Persona game is considered canon, even games like Persona 3 Portable. Many of the games either take place in an alternate universe or have the memories of the events wiped from the characters' minds, such as the dancing games. It's why games like Persona Q2 can exist without completely breaking the timeline as we know it. The Japanese title of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is called Persona 4 The Ultimax Ultra Suplex Hold, which is why in one of the promotional arts for the game, you can see Aigis suplexing Narukami. Also, this isn't related, but look at this box art for Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. I mean, come on, that shit's pretty dope. The female protagonist wears hairpins in her hair, and if you view them as Roman numerals, the number comes out to XXII, which is 22, and this number alongside 0 can represent the full arcana. This could also represent the fact that she's a new character, alongside all of the others already present from the previous versions of Persona 3. In the anime series called Gamers, in the second episode, you can see the characters playing P4AU in the arcade. Kazuku plays Teddy and Kita plays Narukami. When playing the female route in Persona 3 Portable, you can romance a number of the male social links, but if you try to confess to Junpei, he will be the only character to deny your advances. This is because his story and character arc would go against this, and I gotta say, Junpei is a real one for this. In the Persona 4 anime, it's implied that Narukami has possibly romanced more than one girl. When Margaret appears during the school festival and talks about his love life, she also tells Nanako this.
Man whore! She said you're one big man whore!
If you choose Rise as your navigator in the arena games, there is a chance she can say Duel 1, Let's Rock, and Rebel 1, Action. These are both references to other Arc System Works fighting games, Guilty Gear and BlazBlue.
Duel 1, let's rock! Rebel 1, action!
During the cross-dressing event in Persona 4, Teddy wears a dress based off of Alice, but what most people don't know about this is that Kanji is the one that made that dress for him. Since he's very talented when it comes to sewing, this isn't too hard to believe in all honesty. In the Persona 4 design works, Sojima revealed that both Yosuke and Chie dye their hair to be the color it is. It honestly makes me wonder what they'd look like with their presumably black hair. In the Persona 4 Arena manga, the game follows the story path of Yosuke rather than anyone else. It's a great route and I recommend reading it if you haven't checked it out. Maya Amano from Persona 2 is the oldest protagonist in the Persona series at 23 years old, and she is also the only protagonist to not be a high school student. A nice change of pace. In the game files of the 2012 fighting game Skullgirls, and an unused text string for the character Eliza is a pretty detailed ASCII portrait of Maya shrugging. The developer must have been a pretty big Persona 2 fan. In an interview with Kazuma Kaneko, the character designer for several Persona and SMT games, he said that the Persona 1 protagonist was given an androgynous look so that he could appeal to female players as well. He was based off of Tomiya Nagase from the band called Tokyo. Most of the Velvet Room attendants, including Igor, get their name from Frankenstein. Elizabeth, Theodore, Margaret, Caroline, Justine, Lavenza, all of them. The only one that doesn't is Merope, who is the attendant for Wonder in P5X. In the anime series No Game, No Life, there is a scene where they reference other games and series, and in this scene they show what is very obviously Chie. The background also kinda looks like golden imagery, but hey, maybe it was just a coincidence, who knows. Joker's glasses in Persona 5 are actually fake. He wears them for fashion purposes and to make himself look less threatening, since his whole thing is that he's a wrongly convicted criminal. A nice touch of personality toward what is mostly a silent protagonist. There are a total of 29 chairs in the main classroom of P4, that being Class 2-2, and there are 9 fire extinguishers in the practice building. These are by far the most useless facts of this video, but this is what nerds like myself live for. Each gun used in Persona 5 by the Phantom Thieves is based off of a real-life weapon. An example is the first pistol Ryuji gives the Joker, which is based on the Nornko Type 54. Every single gun in the game is based off something for the most part. Troy Baker has the most major voice roles in the Persona series. He voices Kei Nanjo in the Persona 1 PSP remake, Akechi Mishima in the Persona 2 PSP remake, and Kanji Tatsumi in Persona 4. Out of the 5 mainline games, he voices main characters in 3 of them, and I'm not complaining, he's one of my all-time favorite voice actors. In a Dengeki PlayStation Persona poll held in Japan in 2016, there was a section to find out what percentage of players were male and female, and surprisingly, it was more even than you might think. 56.5% of players were male, and 43.5% of players were female. This is a Japan-only poll, so it's hard to say what the results would be in other territories, but it's clear that Persona is appealing to all demographics. In the Persona 3 manga, across the 11 volumes that were created, it came out to a total of 1,750 pages in total. For the Persona 4 manga, it had 13 volumes and a total of 2,162 pages. Almost every volume in the Persona 4 manga has 163 pages besides volumes 9 and 13, which have 177 and 195 respectively. Persona 5's manga is currently ongoing with 13 volumes. Persona 5's manga has taken so long to complete that they have now started to add the royal content to it retroactively. The first volume was released on August 10th, 2017, and because of the decision to add Maruki and Kasumi after the fact, the way they're introduced is different. They are introduced after the 3rd palace instead of the start of the game. In the very early scripts of Persona 5, Joker was initially meant to live with Sai instead of Sojiro. In general, the story of P5 was going to be a lot different than what we got in the final package, but for the Sai thing, it is interesting to think about how that would have turned out. Sojiro is the GOAT though, so I'm glad we got what we got. Haru has no computer literacy whatsoever. In Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight, during one of the Hangout events, she says that she thought booting a PC meant literally kicking it. In Margaret's Persona 4 dancing artwork, she mimics Joseph Joestar's pose from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. She's actually just a JoJo's fan in lore because she makes the investigation team do JoJo's poses as well in Persona Q. Very cool considering her otherwise serious and somewhat cold demeanor. Did you know that Fuka Yamagishi is the best girl in all of Persona history? No more needs to be said. And with that completely incontestable 101st fact laid on the table, that wraps up all the facts I got for you in this video. Surely there had to be at least one thing you didn't know about in this video. You gotta give me some credit there. If you enjoyed this video and learned some things from it, I would appreciate it if you could drop me a like and a subscribe. It helps the channel a ton and I'll love you forever. And you can also have a virtual cookie on the house. Bam! Here you go. I got nothing else to say other than that. It's been your boy Yandere Gogeta, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out everybody, and have a great day.